Shalom, shalom, family. We are at it again. Once again, I want to give all honor and praise and glory to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Holy One of Israel, who is Jesus. I am Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Shazak ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho, Biblical and Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood Media. And, of course, we always have music to come along with that. To play for y'all as y'all come on in. So come on in, family, as we can get this started. And here we go.
Hey, King. Hey, go ahead, man. Go ahead and tell them what we finna bring to them, Joe. Tell them what's going on out here. They shooting. I watch them recruiting. I'm saluting while they letting the troops in. Babylon with simultaneous groups live. Like vagabonds and
shalom, everybody, come on in, family.
Strange arrangements at the head of the streets, they love to defame us. These politicians are beasts, they Israel renamed us. My position's a priest, you know I've been trained up. Wow, these flying finna be raised up. Opposition increases, my position's my thesis. Zion's been parted, not intending to keep her. You see these jakes in these foreign lands, can't believe I can stand another sight, but yet it's more in hand. The dog can get another bite, so get the water, man. They do this out of spite, it's the slaughter, man. Calling for delivery, but where's the order, man? Still wander, you'll catch them in the woods. Paralyzed tribe, think the curse is all good. They shooting. Check out the news in the hood, they shooting. This for the bruise in the hood. They still wander, you'll catch them in the woods. Paralyzed tribe, think the curse is all good. They shooting. Check out the news in the hood, they shooting. This for the bruise in the hood. Looking at the state of things, hoping for greater things, like ain't what it really seems. It's all deflated dreams that we on a losing team, but it's only momentary. He choose the Hebrews is necessary. It's all about the mission, handle this light affliction. But the nation facing got us in a position where we can never prosper, never get the honor. Face down with guns strong, that's how they want us. And we making it easy, we destroying the sales. If they kill us and we kill us, none of us slay them. The agenda is moving, yeah, they know what they doing. With one accord, conspiring to leave Israel ruined. But any weapon form, man, it's coming to nada. You touch the apple of his eye, now you got your problem. He returning the visions, show the nations are finished. When the numbers of all flesh become the myth. They still wander, you'll catch them in the woods. Paralyzed tribe, think the curse is all good. They shooting. Check out the news in the hood, they shooting. This for the bruise in the hood. They still wander, you'll catch them in the woods. Paralyzed tribe, think the curse is all good. They shooting. Check out the news in the hood, they shooting. This for the bruise in the hood.
All right. As always, I love that song for one. But as always, I want to give all honor and praise once again to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Holy One of Israel, who is Jesus. We performed that last night at the Israel School of Excellence fundraiser. Everybody was there. Y'all know how we got down as far as everybody. I'm talking about everybody. We had a good time. Shout out to Ren once again and them brothers. So, brothers and sisters, the one thing, we're going to kick right into this lesson. The one thing I love about the Bible, the number one thing, right? And y'all know I'm a history nut. So, but the one thing that I love about the Bible, brothers and sisters, is the prophecy and the history together. That is what makes this gold to me. That is what convinced me to even believing that this was the God of all gods and that there's no other God but the true and living God, the God of Israel, right? And so, when I talk about, when we get into prophecy, brothers and sisters, prophecy is another step of history. It's a supernatural form of history. It's prophecy, right? And just because you don't understand it, that doesn't mean it's not a prophecy, brothers and sisters. And just because man has certain dates, or whatever, or the dates that you find that man has said, that don't take away the power in this, brothers and sisters, right? And as we're gonna see, the dates are not off, right? That these people are getting their wrong dates and everything. If you look deep enough, you'll see that these things are connected, right? So what we are going to do is more so focus on the fourth beast in Daniel, as far as him breaking down the statue with Nebuchadnezzar. This is going to be like a continuation, since we're still in this 12 days of Christmas. Remember, it's 12 days of Christmas, right? 12 days of Christmas. So we just focus on the 25th because they said it's the birthday of Jesus, which we know is not true. But it's 12 days of Christmas. So therefore, we're going to continue in the spirit of that, but on the opposite side, right? Informing you why you should stay away from that spirit. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to get into the 10 horns today, brothers and sisters, right? From the fourth beast. That's why this lesson will be called the 10 horns of the fourth beast. The 10 horns of the fourth beast. And we're going to break this down and show you how only a God of omnipotence, brothers and sisters, can call this before it happens, and it actually happens in detail, right? So that's what we're going to get into, right? So we're going to start this, of course, in Isaiah the 46th chapter. We're going to start this at Isaiah the 46th chapter and verse 9. Isaiah the 46th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 9. Isaiah 46 and verse 9. And verse 9 reads, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is none else. I am God and there is none like me." So he's already proclaiming that he is God and there is none like him, brothers and sisters, right? If you go to the previous chapters before it, he gets to telling you there is no other God but him, right? Skip, there is no other God like me. There ain't no other God but him. There are no gods but him, right? And this is how we can tell the difference between him and this book when it comes to other religions as well, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 10, "Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure." So he's saying that he is declaring the end from the beginning. This is what we're going to see today, brothers and sisters, right? Just one example, right? This is just one example. Verse 11, "Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country, yea, I have spoken it, I will also bring it to pass. I have proposed it, I will also do it," right? So whatever a God says is going to happen before it happens, and it happens, brothers and sisters, you can put your money on it that is God, right? And if you still have your doubts, you can at least say, okay, he got a good point and claim to say that he is God because these things have happened, right? But a lot of folks don't think this is prophecy, brothers and sisters, and that's where it falls on deaf ears, right? But we're going to show that no matter what, the dates that you come up with, it's not going to go so far, it's not going to go so far in the future, brothers and sisters, that there's things that are going to happen even after our time that are not going to happen according to this book, right? So let us get into this, right? Let's go to Daniel, the 2nd chapter now, right? Remember, he said he was going to call the end from the beginning, and we're going to see that now. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Daniel, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 31. Daniel, the 2nd chapter, and we are going to start at verse 31. Daniel, the 2nd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 31. Shalom, shalom to you, beloved. Daniel, the 2nd chapter, and verse 31. Right, and this is dealing with the dream that Nebuchadnezzar is breaking down Daniel is breaking down for Nebuchadnezzar, which all the wise men and all the enchanters and all the soothsayers and all the astrologers, they could not break this down, right? With all the wisdom, they go into their gods as well, brothers and sisters, to try to get wisdom about the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, right? So now Daniel telling him that the God of the heavens is going to be the one that interpret his dream for you. He's about to break this down, and we're going to get very detailed when it comes to this, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 31, it says, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image," right? So he saw the great image that Nebuchadnezzar had that had a dream about, right? He said, "This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his leg and his feet part iron and part clay." Now look at this, brothers and sisters. We're going to put some dates on here, right? When you see the head of gold, is when Nebuchadnezzar comes in, and these wars start to come, right? Starting with the battle of what they call the Battle of Carchemish, right? This starts in 609 BCE, right? This is also the beginning of the 70 years of Israel and the surrounding nations being under the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar for 70 years, right? And then this goes from 609 to 539 when Cyrus comes in and he allows us to go back to the land, brothers and sisters, right? That's when the Babylonian head was gone. Once Cyrus came into play, and it was a little bit before that, but really when Cyrus came into play is when Persia, the Medo-Persian Empire really took over from the Babylonians, right? So you have that. You have from the Persian Empire starting at Cyrus, going down to Alexander the Great, when it really kicked off with the Greek Empire. This was from 539 to 331 BCE, right? So these are major times when these nations took power from the other nation, right? Not when they're starting to dampen the power, but when it was fully taken over by these other nations, right? Then you have Greece. Greece held the power from 331 until like 146, not like till 146. I don't like using those terms. So till 146. However, they didn't completely take over because Egypt was still controlled by the Hellenistic world, right? But it wasn't until 31 BCE when now you have the Hellenistic world finally cut off, even in Egypt, and then Rome takes over, right? So now, from 31 BCE, and this is the coming of Caesar Augustus coming on the scene and it becoming the Roman Empire. This is the Iron Age of the Roman Empire from 31 BCE to 235 BCE. If y'all go down in history, right, you can see that these different empires and the way that they're described, brothers and sisters, by their own history, it's showing that this is correct. Even with these dates, these things are correct, right? So you got, like I said, from Rome from 31 BCE to 235 AD. This is when Rome started to collapse. Then you got the splitting of Rome between the Rome, the East and the West. So they're starting not to even be the iron that they once were, brothers and sisters, right? And then from 235 to 476, that's when we start to get into the horns, right? So I broke all of that down so y'all can understand when we breaking this thing down where we are in this prophecy, right? So let us continue. So it says, verse 33, his legs and his iron, his legs of iron, his feet part iron and part clay. Remember when it's his feet, right? You got 2 feet. Now you got the east and the west of Rome, right? Part iron and part clay, because now they are not as strong as they once were, brothers and sisters. This happened in around 286 AD, right? But even before that, they start collapsing in power, right? So verse 34 says, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces, right? Because when this stone come, which we talking about Jesus, once this stone come, brothers and sisters, he's going to break down all of it, He gonna break down all of it. But when he comes back as that lion, this fourth beast is gonna be part iron and part clay. It's gonna be weaker than it ever once was. So Christ ain't even gonna have a big time taking this down like he would have done in the Iron Age of Rome, but he still would have took it down. I'm just letting y'all see to get the picture of things that are going on, right? So it says that this stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and of clay, and break them into pieces, right? Let's skip down to verse 40. Skip down to verse 40. So now we're going to deal with the fourth beast, brothers and sisters, right? We named all four of them, right? So now we're going to deal with the fourth beast. Verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, right? The kingdom shall be divided from the east and the west of Rome. It's going to be divided, brothers and sisters, right? That's where you get the feet, right? Let us continue. It said it's going to be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with merry clay. So it's going to still have that same strength, but not like it did in the past, brothers and sisters, right? So we got to be mindful. That's when we get into the 10 horns, because these 10 horns are going to try to revive the Roman Empire back to its Iron Age, even though they're never going to get back to that until this 10th horn comes up. This is what they're doing. But even then, that 10th horn is going to be stopped by that stone, brothers and sisters, right? So we got to be mindful that the stone will come down and cut down the image, right? All these, the Gentile nations that's ruling, that stone is going to come down and cut the image. So you must have faith in that, brothers and sisters, that you are holding on, being obedient to God, because you know that stone gonna come and destroy that image, right? That's what we got to be mindful of, right? We're not gonna be in this forever, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, right? That's what we're seeing. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with merry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay, right? Because some of these nations that tried to revive the Roman Empire, right, were not even Roman. They weren't Italian. Some of them were French and things of that nature, brothers and sisters. So you got the seed of men mingling in with this fourth beast. That is what it means. You got different people from other nationalities that not even part of the Roman beast. They're trying to take over the Roman Empire and revive it, right? But because of those things, brothers and sisters, it's never going to get back to where it was, right? And we're going to see that. Verse 44, in those days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever, right? And this is when we gonna have the 1,000-year millennium period, right after when Jesus comes back, brings everybody back to the land who's supposed to be back there, and then the 1,000-year millennium period will start, right? Right after he takes down this fourth beast, right? So let us continue. Let's go into more description of this fourth beast. Let's go now to Daniel, the 7th chapter. Daniel, the 7th chapter. Daniel, the 7th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Daniel, the 7th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Daniel 7 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And of course, we are going to we are going to use the four winds of heaven, right? Fortunately, we're going to use this, the four winds of heaven, that was written by our beloved, one of our beloved camps, Israel of God, from Brother Bowie. If you have this book, this is a really good book, brothers and sisters, and it will guide you to understanding everything as far as Daniel prophecy, especially. It's a great breakdown, brothers and sisters. It's deep, but it's simple, and that's how you want it, right? So, we're going to continue. So it says, verse 3, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another, right? So you got these four great beasts, which we're going to see are the four great kingdoms. These beasts represent kingdoms that ruled the whole earth, brothers and sisters, right? Let us skip down to verse 7. Verse 7. Once again, we are going to deal with the fourth beast. The fourth beast, brothers and sisters. Verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Remember that, brothers and sisters, right? It was diverse from all the beasts before it, right? Because it is going to continue to be over your head and in your spiritual life, in your cultural life, all the way down until these times, brothers and sisters, where the other beasts, they came and they went. They came and they went. Rome, which is the fourth beast, brothers and sisters, never went anywhere. Now, it might not have been as strong as it was between those times when I gave y'all. Remember, that's 31 BCE to 235 AD, right? It might not be as strong as it was then, but it's still here. And we still got to deal with this, right? That's why you still got Christmas and all these things, Jesus' birthday and all these things. It's because of Rome, brothers and sisters. That's why you got the Easter and things like that. Easter, Halloween, Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? It's because of Rome, brothers and sisters. Rome brought this upon you, right? From Greece and then Rome. But we're really dealing with Rome, right? And he said that this beast, this fourth beast, had 10 horns, right? Verse 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, right? So you got 10 horns, but you got another little horn, which will be 11 horns, brothers and sisters, right? But we're still dealing with the 10 horns. It's just you got this other little horn with the 10 horns, right? Let us continue. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. We can get into the religious horn, the religious leader with these horns that tried to help revive the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 9, and I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and his hair, the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was like a fury flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So we know that's dealing with Christ coming up on the scene, brothers and sisters, right? So this is what we're dealing with. The 10 horns that's on this beast plus this other little horn, right? Let's skip down to verse 17. Skip down to verse 17. And verse 17 reads, these great beasts, which are four kings which shall rise up out of the earth. 4 kings or kingdoms, brothers and sisters, right? But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever, right? So we know that that's coming upon us, brothers and sisters. So we must keep enduring unto the end, right? We have a map on when these things are going to happen, not specifically at every little time, but we know that we're down to these toes right now. We're down to these last toes or whatever, brothers and sisters, right? Let's skip down to verse 23. Skip down to verse 23. And verse 23 reads, Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Now, we're going to, like I said, we're going to get into this, and we're going to see this in great detail, brothers and sisters, right? Not too hard, but it's going to be in detail, right? Deep but simple. Verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and a dividing of times. Now look at that. He said he shall think to change times and laws. He is going to change all the things that the Lord set up and bring in these Roman customs, brothers and sisters. That was what he was doing. From all the nations that came before, all the cultures that were mingled and mixed before it, Rome takes this, mixes it together, and then calls it Christianity, right? And that's what we're going to see, that he changed times and laws when it came down to God's laws, God's timing. You know, that's why we go from, we got this solar calendar way of thinking versus the lunar calendar, brothers and sisters, going by the moon. They go by the sun. You see what I'm saying? He's changed times and laws. And of course, he's changed the laws as far as the laws of the Bible, the laws of God, to the laws of the Roman beasts. Right? So we got to look at these things, brothers and sisters, understand that Christmas, all these holidays, they came from these changing of times and laws, brothers and sisters, right? So it's still coming from the fourth beast. It's not coming from God, right? Verse 25. Verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it until the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him, right? And that's what we should be focused on, brothers and sisters, right? Once again, endure until the end, because this thing is not too long. It's not too long in front of us, brothers and sisters, right? This thing is almost at an end. So now, let's get into the history of this, right? Remember when I told y'all we're going to see the Iron Age and why the Iron Age of Rome ended, right? What had happened to make it come from this great iron beast to now it's iron and clay. And now we're going to show you that the 10 horns are coming upon the iron and clay part of the kingdom, brothers and sisters, right? So let's go into the 4 winds of heaven. Once again, this is written by one of our beloved camps, the Israel of God. They did a great breakdown on here, brothers and sisters, and I'm about to show you why I say that. So if you have the 4 winds of heaven, you can read along too. We're going to page 16. Page 16. 4 winds of heaven, written by the Israel of God, Henry Bowie to be more specific. And we're going to start at page 16. And here we go. So it says at the top, in the beginning, up in the top of the paragraph, it says, with the fall of Egypt, if y'all can see that, with the fall of Egypt went the last vestige of the once great Greek Empire, right? So now we got Rome taking over when it comes to Greece, right? And Egypt was the last Hellenistic country that had to be conquered by Rome, right? That's why I said, even though in 146 they started taking over, but they didn't get Egypt until 31 BCE, right? So let us continue. It says, Octavian was given the title Augustus, and from that time on, Rome was no longer called the Roman state, but the Roman Empire. and was the undisputed possessor of all known civilizations, right? So this is the Iron Age, or the Iron Period of the Roman Empire, right? Let us continue. The supreme ruler was no longer called dictator, but emperor, which was the head of the fourth beast. With the head, a succession of emperors in place, the Roman Empire enjoyed quiet order and internal peace, and was in control from 31 BC to 235 AD. Y'all see that? So they were in control wholeheartedly with quiet order and internal peace, brothers and sisters, right? Quiet order and internal peace from 31 BCE to 235 AD, their Iron Period. Nobody trying to mess with them, right? It was barbarian tribes that tried to come at them, and they just kept slaughtering all of them, right? Y'all can go on Netflix. It's I forgot what it's specifically called, but it's about the Roman Empire, showing you I'm talking about showing you the ingrained detail of how Rome took over. They were serious, brothers and sisters. When it says that this is a great and terrible beast, Daniel wasn't playing. He wasn't exaggerating whatsoever. Let us continue. It says after 235 AD. Now we're going into the iron mixed with mirror clay part of the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters. Right? Let's see why it became that. It said after 238 AD, chaos started to set in. First, from internal corruption among high officials, so their eternal peace. The eternal peace is starting to get out of whack, right? Which weakened the empire. So their eternal peace with their high officials is one of the reasons why they got weakened, right? Then pressure from outside nations over which they once had control, right? So the pressure of the outside nations wanting to go in and attack them, they were no longer scared of the Romans, brothers and sisters. So they were attacking them all over the place, right? Let us continue. With an increasing number of civil wars and Roman generals fighting against each other, the empire could no longer stop the advances of outside forces. Because of these internal and external problems, Rome reverted to totalitarianism, and that's when the cruel treatment of the public set in. The suffering became unbearable. So internally, Rome is starting to collapse, brothers and sisters, right? It loses that iron part of its kingdom, right? It loses that strength, that exceeding strong strength that once had before this, right? Because of all the things that were happening internally, all of the civil wars that were going on, brothers and sisters, even their financial state is collapsing. You see what I'm saying? So this is why now they're starting to get weak, right? Iron mixed with mirror clay, right? Let us continue. Because of excessive cruelty, Romans started to turn to a religion that stressed love and charity. Now, this is the reason why the paganism, as far as the paganism under the Christianity, it was able to creep in, brothers and sisters, because of the cruelty from the Roman Empire, right? So all people wanted to hear was love and charity, right? And that's why we stress, especially here at the walls of Jericho, that's why we stress humility and charity, brothers and sisters, right? It don't matter how much you know. The devil can come out of the blue and start giving love and charity while you giving people facts, charts, graphs, and all of that, sounding like a true scholar, right? But if you ain't got no humility and you ain't got no charity, you have nothing. That's why a false religion can slide in and shift the people to damnation because of the love and charity. Now imagine if you have love and charity with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from God. That's something to think about. That was something to think about, brothers and sisters. Side note. Let us continue. It promised redemption, resurrection, and in the afterlife, happiness unattainable on earth. Until it became worldly with the exercise of power, Christianity to them meant alienation from life, total alienation. There were many other religions in the empire when Constantine I, called the Great, rose to power. He supported Christianity. Now we got this false Christianity that comes in, brothers and sisters, right? As soon as Christianity was recognized, laws for the observance of Sunday as the Christian Sabbath day were enacted. Constantine in 321 AD prohibited all businesses on that day except necessary agricultural labor. Constantine died in 337 AD, receiving a Christian baptism before his death. So now we know this is how the Christian doctrine got in the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters, right? Through Emperor Constantine. And why was it so easy to get in there? Because the empire became cruel and rude and unbearable to its citizens. And now all they want to do is hear about love and charity, right? That's something that you need to think about, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Rome was not able to stop its outside attackers. It finally collapsed in 476 AD when its last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was disposed by the Herulians under the leadership of Odoacer, and the first of the Germanic tribes to sack and rule the Roman state. I use the word state because of the empire had long since fragmented and Rome had lost control of the world, right? So that's why it said state, right? So now we got one of the first horns that comes on the scene, excuse me, in 476 AD, which is the Herulians, brothers and sisters, right? So we're going to get into the horns that got plucked up by its roots was the Herulians or the Huruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals, right? If you want to write that down, you can. Excuse me, my allergies are still messing with me. So the Herulians, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. These were the three that were plucked up by its roots. We're going to see how that happened, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Now we're going on to page 20 in the Four Winds of Heaven, page 20. The Four Winds of Heaven, page 20, right? Says the 10 horns and what they represent. So now we're going to really get into it, brothers and sisters, right? And so let us begin. So it says, now that the emperor, the head, no longer exists, we are left with the 10 horns on the head of the beast. The first 3 horns that were plucked up by the roots are the Herulians, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals, right? And y'all can see in history, that history is gone, brothers and sisters. It's like you ain't heard from them again, right? That's why I say this book. Now, mind you, let's go by the claim of what the book is saying is been written in, right? It says that this was written in the first year of Belteshazzar, who was Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, right? So we're still dealing with the 6th century BCE. We're still dealing with, I'm sorry, not the 6th, the 7th century. The 7th and 6th century, actually, it goes into each other. So the 7th and 6th century BCE. So from there on down, brothers and sisters, this is a prophecy, right? But we got people that will say, well, the whole Bible wasn't collectively put together to like 400 AD and all of these things like that. Well, you still have these 10 horns that came after this, brothers and sisters. So even with the last date that I've heard, anyway, the last date that I've heard when it comes to when this Bible, at least the Old Testament, was collectively put together, brothers and sisters, was about 400 AD. But as we see, we're not going to come into the first horn, as far as the first horn of the 10, until 476 AD. So no matter what, brothers and sisters, this is a prophecy. This is a prophecy from when it was written or collectively brought together by anybody's dating that I've heard, right? Let us continue. It says, so the Huruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals, it says, Odoacer, the leader of the Herulians, was sometimes looked upon as the leader of the Ostrogoths. But in truth, he was a usurper and was later assassinated by the real king of the Ostrogoths, Theodoric II, right? Odoacer disposed of the last Roman emperor in 476 AD and governed Italy as representative of the Roman emperor of the East, thus becoming the first foreign ruler to govern the Roman state in Italy. So now all these foreign rulers are now ruling over Italy or Rome, brothers and sisters, right? So now you got the iron mixed, the seed of men mixing in with the fourth beast, right? Because we got these foreign rulers now that are trying to revive this thing, and it's never going to be like it was because of that, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. So it says, this Attica and his Herulians were the first of the 10 horns on the head of the fourth beast. So that's one beast that's down, right? So it says, King Theodoric II led his Ostrogoths into Italy in 493 AD and besieged the Herulians in Ravenna. Attica surrendered and was assassinated in 493 AD. The Herulians were never heard of again. So they got plucked out. They got plucked out by their roots, brothers and sisters, meaning that you never heard from them again, right? Let us continue. It says they represent the first horn that was plucked up by the roots, right? So we got the Herulians, right? Let's continue. The Ostrogoths, after vanishing the Herulian, became the second foreign power to rule the Roman state in Italy. Under the Ostrogoths, Italy was still one state, but a state in which two distinct nations lived, each with its own political organizations and its version of Christianity. The Romans were Catholic and the Ostrogoths were called the Arian version. So now if you go back to the Nicene Council, brothers and sisters, there were two primary groups. Well, really three if you really want to get there. But the two I'm really talking about was the people that ended up becoming the Catholics or the Western Christians, which became the Catholicism, and the Arians, right? Is a man named Arius that came, and he pretty much had his side, his point of view of Christianity and the divinity of Christ. He basically said that Christ was the Messiah. They believed all of that, but he was not God in the flesh, right? So they didn't go that far with the Arian version of Christianity. Then you had the Catholics that made him a divine power, which he's supposed to be, right? But they turned him into a sun god. And that was the problem with that. And then you have the East Orthodox Christians, and they try to say they're the closest ones to the original Christianity. I mean, they probably are a little closer than the other ones, but they're still polluted as well, brothers and sisters, right? So you got the Eastern Rome with the Orthodox Christianity. You got the Western Rome with the Catholicism, and then you got with the barbarian tribes this Arian version of Christianity. It made them war against each other, brothers and sisters. So regardless, when it comes to Rome, brothers and sisters, they don't have an authentic Christian doctrine, right? And that's what you got to be mindful of. So all the things that you did in this world that is not part of what's in the Torah, it came from Rome, brothers and sisters. All versions of Christianity came from Rome, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. While King Theodoric was busy carving himself a spot out of the once great Roman Empire, his brother-in-law, King Gaiseric, the leader of the Vandals, conquered all of Roman Africa, with the exception of Bovia and Cirta, which is Constantine. The Vandals held dominion over North Africa and Cyrenaica to the Atlantic Ocean, including the Balearic Islands, Corsica, Sardinia, and the port of Sicily. After King Theodoric of the Ostrogoths and King Gaiseric of the Vandals died, their successors took over. Belonging to the Arian version of Christianity, they severely persecuted the Catholics. So you can see that they were against one another, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. And both nations were defeated by Justinian, who held the title of Roman Emperor of the East. Justinian waged war on the Vandals and defeated them in 533 AD. Look at this, right? So these three barbarian, or these three horns, which are these barbarian Germanic tribes, they're about to get plucked up by Justinian, who is this right after the three horns. He's the fourth horn coming up, right? This was in 533 AD. Once again, we're still seeing a prophecy from the last date that I didn't heard when it comes to the complete compilation of the Old Testament. meaning the book of Daniel was already written and compiled at this time, brothers and sisters, and it's still foretelling the future. So regardless, don't let nobody play you when it comes to that, right? It's still foretelling the future from what these scholars say that the book was compiled in, right? Let us continue. Now, it says Justinian waged war on the Vandals and defeated them in 533 AD. The Vandals no longer figured as a nation in history. Now the second horn on the head of the fourth beast has been plucked up by its roots, right? We see that. Let us continue. Justinian, bent on reestablishing the unity of the empire, sent an expeditionary force to Italy in 535 AD and attacked the Ostrogoths. Now, once again, we're reminding people that the 10 horns are the rise and fall of the Roman Empire 10 times. That means when the Roman Empire got to the point that it was weak, brothers and sisters, you have these 10 horns that tried to revive it and bring it back to its iron age, right? That's what that means, right? So they want to bring it back to when it was exceeding dreadful and strong exceedingly, brothers and sisters, right? It never got back that way, right? So let us continue. With the Herulians, Vandals, I'm getting ahead of myself. It says, after almost 2 decades of ferocious war, they finally defeated them. After their defeat, the Ostrogoths disappeared from the pages of history. Now the third horn was plucked up by its roots. So that's 3 horns that's been plucked up, right? The Herulians, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals, right? And now Justinian is coming up on the scene, and this is where we see the religious leader, the popes, start to come up on the scene, right? The papacy starts to come up on the scene at Emperor Justinian, right? Let us continue. The Herulians, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, now gone. This left 7 horns of the head of the fourth beast. The first of the 7 horns was Justinian, being of the order of the Byzantine emperors and looked upon as the legitimate ruler. Justinian was also looked upon as the head of the Christian church, right? As were his predecessors. He was crowned in Hagia Sophia, the church of holy wisdom, right? Justinian died in 565 AD. His head represented the passing of the first of the 7 horns left on the head of the fourth beast. Now only 6 were left. So we're going to go all the way down, brothers and sisters. Remember, the 10th horn hasn't been there. So we're going to name 9 of them for right now. And we're waiting on the 10th one to come in the future, right? Let us continue. From the time of Constantine, the Roman Empire looked upon the Byzantine emperors as the head of the Christian church. But disputes over doctrine weakened the Byzantine authority, and in 800 AD, Pope Leo III, head of the church in Rome, crowned Charles, king of the Franks, as emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, Charles I, which this is Charlemagne the Great, brothers and sisters, he is the 5th horn on of the 10 horns, the 5th horn. He was coronated or given his crown in 800 AD. But guess when he was given his crown, brothers and sisters? He was given his crown on Christmas of 800 AD. And this is the man where they finally call Rome the Holy Roman Empire under Charlemagne the Great, or King Charles, as they called him, right? He's King Charles, king of the Franks. He's a Frenchman, right? You see how the seed of men are getting mingled and mixed in? Because he's a Frenchman. He's a Frank, right? So he's not an Italian trying to revive the Holy Roman Empire, brothers and sisters. So you see this, and you can see it's going along with the prophecy, right? Let us continue. It said crowned Charles, king of the Franks, as emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Charles was later called Charlemagne. The crowning of Charlemagne was a big ceremony. Of course it was. It's on Christmas, right? Hold on, my bad. All right. So, the Italians were proud because there had been no emperor in the West since 476 AD. That's when the Herulians took down the last emperor, which was Romulus Augustulus, who was an actual Italian, who was an actual Roman, brothers and sisters, right? So that's why they were happy, because now we got a revision of the Roman Empire of a Roman emperor since 476 AD, right? The Italians were proud because there had been no emperor in the West since 476, the West. But this also led to the rift between Western Christianity, Catholic, and Eastern Christianity, Orthodox, as it existed, right? Because that Arian version really died off with the barbarian tribes, brothers and sisters. You probably got some people out here that try to adopt it, but it's not as strong as it once was with those Germanic tribes, right? Let us continue. This was the first time the name holy had been placed in front of Roman Empire during Charlemagne's reign. Once again, this man was crowned king on Christmas, right? So we got to think about things like that. They did that in a ceremony on Christmas, celebrating Jesus' birthday and the crowning of Charlemagne the Great, right? And it's crazy, man. It's crazy. They knew what they were doing, y'all, and y'all got to think about this. They knew what they were doing. Right, let us continue. Let's see where I'm at. So, okay, this was the first time the name holy had been placed in front of the Roman Empire, which brings the focus to the power of the Pope. Charlemagne died in 814 AD. His death represented the passing of another horn. Now 5 are left, right? So we can see all these men tried to revive. This is the fifth horn that tried to revive the Holy Roman Empire, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. The last of Charlemagne's heirs was disposed and the government fell to several hands, right? So it's the rise and fall of the Holy Roman Empire. Rise and fall. Let us keep that in mind, right? Finally, Pope John the 7th, or the 12th, I'm sorry, Pope John the 12th asked, no, Pope John the 7th, I was right the first time, asked Otto the Great to come to Italy and fight against Berengar II. After defeating him, Otto was crowned King of Italy in Pavia in 952 AD and Emperor of Rome in 962 AD. Otto's reign inaugurated the Holy Roman Empire, founded on the principle one Pope, one Emperor. So now we getting down somewhere, right? It says Otto, some history books spell his name Otho, was credited as being the founder of the Holy Roman Empire. He died in 973 AD. His death represented the passing of another horn. Now only 4 are left, right? So what do we have? We had the Herulians, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, Justinian, Charlemagne the Great, and now we are at Otto the Great, brothers and sisters. We're at the 6th horn now, right? Let us continue. After Otto's death, the church continued to grow with many clerics in the kingdom of Germany, Italy, and Burgundy, making up the Holy Roman Empire, and held both ecclesiastical and temporal power. The question started to loom: who was the supreme power, the emperor or the pope? So now we got this friction going back and forth. And brothers and sisters, they got this friction all the way down till now. Who was the king of the Roman Empire? Was it the pope or was it the king? Was it the emperor, right? So this only started happening when you got the Roman Empire in its partly strong and partly weak phase, brothers and sisters, right? I want to keep reminding people of that. So it says the struggle between the rulers and the papacy continued through many popes and rulers, with one getting the advantage and then the other. In the 1500s, Charles V rose to power. So now we're going on to this 6th one, brothers and sisters, right? As it was the emperors before him, he also clashed with the Pope. Finally, Pope Clement made peace with him and crowned him Holy Roman Emperor in 1530. In exchange, the Pope requested the reestablishment of his family's rule in Florence. Charles V also restored other papal states to Catholic rule in the following years, and did more towards restoring the Roman Empire than any other ruler since Charlemagne, right? Charles abdicated in 1556 and died in 1558. His death represented the passing of another horn on the head of the fourth beast, leaving 3. So he was the 7th. I'm sorry, he was the 7th, not the 6th. He was the 7th, and now we have 3 more, brothers and sisters, right? So let us continue. After Charles V passing, the empire started to erode again and was scattered in the hands of many different nationalities. The Protestants, which started with the protests of Martin Luther in 1517, was on the rise, and revolts were everywhere, including the elimination of papal control over the English Catholic Church by Henry VIII in 1534. The decline of the once great empire had reached an all-time low. Italians were no longer citizens even in Italy, but subjects, right? So they had all type of stuff going on, brothers and sisters, right? Going back and forth, trying to revive it back to what it once was, right? Let us continue. Whether under native princes or foreign governors, it was all the same to them. The Pope still had some control and the papal state was still intact. Okay, so now let us continue. Early in 1797, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded the papal states and forced Pope Pius VI to recognize the Septendian Republic. Bonaparte became Napoleon I, Emperor of France, right? So he was Emperor of France, right? And in 1805 made himself King of Italy. So we see, like I said, brothers and sisters, whether they were native, whether they were foreign, the plan was the same, to revive the Roman Empire, but they mixed their seed together. And that's why you had some foreign rulers ruling, you had some native rulers ruling. But they never got back to where they were, right? Let us continue. As it had been with previous rulers, Napoleon clashed with the popes. On July 5th, 1809, one of Napoleon's generals forced his way into the papal residence in Rome and asked Pope Pius VIII, Charmanti, to retract a statement reiterating papal supremacy over temporal sovereigns. Pius VIII refused and was deported to France the next day. Later, the papal states were reestablished according to their pre-1796 boundaries and were ruled over by Pius VIII, whom Napoleon had released from his second confinement in France in January 1814. Napoleon, after many more battles, some losses and some victories, was finally defeated for the last time in Waterloo. Napoleon abdicated and was confined on the islands of St. Helena, where he died on May 5th, 1821. His death represented the passing of another horn on the head of the fourth beast in the 7th chapter of Daniel, and now 2 are left. So we breaking this all the way down, right? So we got now the Herulians, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, Justinian, Charlemagne the Great, Otto the Great, Charles IV, and Napoleon Bonaparte. This is 8 of the horns, brothers and sisters, right? That tried to revive the Roman Empire, and it rose and then it fell, going on to the next horn. It kept doing that. So now we are at the 9th horn, and now we're finna see who this is. In 1861, after the revolutionaries achieved most of their goals, Italy was proclaimed a kingdom and Rome was made its capital. In time, the new Italian states brought the whole nation together. As time continued, Italy was as well as other European countries, developed economical and political problems. With the Russian Revolution in 1917, a shock wave went across Europe, creating serious repercussions, and Italy suffered from it. The war ended and the Italian soldiers were returning home to face poverty and unemployment, right? So, of course, we're at another fall of the Roman Empire where they're struggling and things of that nature, right? Let's continue. In the atmosphere of unrest, a renegade socialist, Benito Mussolini, launched its anti-communist movement, the Fascist Party. the Fascist Party, which took its name from the ancient Roman emblem of the Fresses, which symbolizes authority and unity. With unquestioned control of his followers, Mussolini came to power. Mussolini ordered his followers to march on Rome in 1922. The king gave way to his show of force and called on Mussolini to form a government. Mussolini gradually transformed Italy into a dictatorship. There was still the ever-present problem of the papacy that Mussolini had to deal with, right? So once again, all these kings, brothers and sisters, they had to deal with the power of the Pope rising. And as time went on, the Pope's power got bigger and more powerful as time went on, right? And so let's continue. As it was with the previous rulers of the once great Roman state, there was conflict. Pius XI Rodi, who saw the fascism an efficient bulwark against communism, was the Pope during most of the fascist period. The Lateran Treaty, negotiated by the Cardinal Gasperi and signed on February 11th, 1929, ended the conflict between the Italian state and the papacy. The papacy renounced all claims on formal papal territories in exchange for the creation of the independent state at Vatican City. So now, under Mussolini, you have the independent state of Vatican City now, brothers and sisters, where the papal powers had their own independent state, right? So there's no longer a conflict between the emperor and the papacy, right? Because they got their own independent state now, right? And this is under Benito Mussolini, right? With the taken care of, Mussolini pursued his grand ambition, and that was to revive the glories of ancient Rome and make the Italians once again a conquering militaristic people. His dream was, as it was with his predecessors, was never accomplished, right? Because once again, it's the rise and fall of the Roman Empire 10 times, right? And it never got back to where it was. The rise of it going back to its iron without it being iron mixed with clay, just iron, brothers and sisters, right? That's what we mean when we say that, right? So let's continue. Like I said, his dream as his predecessors was never accomplished. After many failures and eventually an alliance with Hitler, Mussolini was captured and shot near Como on April 28th, 1945. His death represents the passing of another horn on the head of the fourth beast in the 7th chapter of Daniel, and now it's only one left, right? And once again, we are waiting for that one in the future, brothers and sisters, but we named 9 of them, right? So how could Daniel call this? This is not a prophecy. Once again, brothers and sisters, you got some people that say that this is written in 400 AD. Daniel is writing it, and as you can see, he's writing it, and it would be in the 6th century BCE. So regardless, it's a prophecy. They try to say it's a history book, but regardless, it's a prophecy. Excuse me. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. So, regardless, it's a prophecy, brothers and sisters, right? So, let's get into more of this prophecy. Because now you got the papal states and you got Rome leading this thing, and we're still under this Roman beast, brothers and sisters, right? So, with that horn, that little horn, outside of the 10 horns, it said he was going to speak great words against the Most High. Let's go see some of these great words that being spoke, right? Let's go to Matthew, the 23rd chapter. Matthew, the 23rd chapter. Matthew, the 23rd chapter, and we are going to read one verse. Verse 9. Matthew, the 23rd chapter, and we're going to read verse 9. One verse. Matthew 23 and verse 9. And verse 9 reads, and call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. So, who calls himself the Holy Father on earth? Right? That's that other horn along with the 10 horns. He called himself the Holy Father, brothers and sisters. So he already speaking great words against the Most High based on his title, right? Let us continue. Let's go to 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter. So from this fourth beast, what do you have, brothers and sisters? Right? 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter. 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 2. 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 2. 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 2. And verse 2 reads, for I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I might present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. Y'all see that, right? Verse 4, for if he cometh preaches another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if ye receive another spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not heard, not accepted, ye might bear with him. So, brothers and sisters, you know that this fourth beast, which this horn, other than the little horns, which is the Pope, you know that this fourth beast is speaking great words against the Most High and thinking to change times and laws. We also read how Constantine had did that, right? But it went down as far as the Pope being the representative, the priest for that religion to speak great words against the Most High. Constantine didn't call himself the Holy Father, right? So we got to look at that. The Pope is the one, he is the culprit here, brothers and sisters, right? The papacy in general. And they are the ones bringing this doctrine that's coming with another Jesus. You see what I'm saying? Coming from the fourth beast, right? Let's skip down to verse 13. Verse 13. And verse 13 reads, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Now, y'all remember where I showed you when the Roman Empire finally collapsed and it's going into this iron and clay state, is because of everything that was going on, the cruel treatment, the financial disasters that was going on, the eternal wars that led to the chaos that destroyed the peace that they once had from 31 BCE to 235 BCE. I mean AD, I'm sorry. 31 BCE to 235 AD. After that, this is when we start going into the mirrored clay era of the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters, right? So by that time, brothers and sisters, you come up with all these horns, and then they're trying to revive this empire back to what it was, but they're the ones that come with the polluted version of Christianity. You see what I'm saying? So they're trying to revive this thing, brothers and sisters, to keep the deception going. And y'all got to think about this stuff, right? The deception is going to come from the fourth beast. He is constantly deceiving us, and the fourth beast is the one that's going to end up being Babylon the Great, right? The resurrection of the fourth beast, which has all the beasts combined in it, right? So we got to be mindful of these things and be set free of these strongholds, brothers and sisters, that these beasts have brought upon this earth, right? So let us continue. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, right? Because this person, this little horn, brothers and sisters, this little horn spoke these great words, right? So he calls himself the Holy Father. He is changing all the rules that God set up in the Torah, the cardinals, the papacy, all of them, they setting up all these rules that go against Torah. And let's see what else he does and is about to do, right? He does it subtly now, but eventually it's going to be right in your face, brothers and sisters, right? I kind of think it's right in your face because he is calling himself the Holy Father, right? Let us continue. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 1. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 1. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 1. And verse 1 reads, "Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind or troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand." Because we see with Daniel, brothers and sisters, he gave us this map. He gave us a map on when things are going to happen, brothers and sisters, right? So we don't have to be shaken in word or in spirit of the day that Christ comes, because we know that Christ is not going to come before the 10th horn comes, don't we? So we know that thing, that we understand these things, and we're not going to be all discombobulated about it, right? We know when these things are going to happen, and we're going to ask and pray for strength to deal with things in the future if we're here, of course. If we have to deal with it in the future, pray for strength, brothers and sisters, because we're all going to need it. Look at this. Look at what God has warned us about. That's why I tell all this bickering and stuff that we be doing, brothers and sisters, it's unnecessary. We got bigger fish we got bigger fish to catch. We got bigger fish to deal with. Right? We got a God that has given us a map of what's going to go on, and we sitting here bickering about the silliest stuff, right? So let's really get on the ball and looking out for each other and having each other's back, brothers and sisters, as people in the truth, right? So it says, verse 3, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not them except there be a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition," right? So that man of sin will come from them horns, brothers and sisters, right? That other little horn, right, is where that man of sin or that son of perdition is going to come from, right? Verse 4, this is what this man of sin will do. He said, "He opposeth and exalted himself above all that is God, or that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God," right? And that is what they're going to do. And subtly, they've been doing it now. Like I said, he called himself the Holy Father. How much more exalting can you get with that? Right? And then all the Catholic priests that's in there, you want us to call him Father too? No, this is from the fourth beast that was going to think to change times and laws, brothers and sisters. Right? The Levitical priest didn't even call himself the Holy Father. The highest chief priest didn't even call himself the Holy Father, brothers and sisters. Right? So this person is doing this already. He's doing it already. Let us continue. Let us go to Revelations, the 13th chapter. Revelations, the 13th chapter. Shalom, shalom to everybody coming in. Shalom to you. Revelations, the 13th chapter, and we're going to read one verse, which is verse 18. Right? So we're going to spot this person out, right? Because he cannot hide from a person that has knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and knows God's prophecies, right? Revelations 13, and we are going to start at verse 18. Revelations 13, and we're going to start at verse 18. Revelations 13 and verse 18. And verse 18 reads, "Here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666," right? So 666. We know that this is the number, right? This is also going back to the Pope, because if you break down his word in Latin, which is vicarius filii Dei, If you break this down in Roman numerals, brothers and sisters, you will get the value of 666. This is also translated as the vicar of Christ, or the replacement of Christ. So this person called himself the Holy Father and the vicar, or the replacement of Christ, who changed the Torah, who's not preaching Torah, brothers and sisters. They're preaching Roman Catholicism that comes from idolatry, idolatrous practices, right? These people have created this thing and have appointed their own version of the priest, who is changing times and laws for the people. Right? So we broke all of this down, and they trying to revive this, brothers and sisters. Y'all got to understand this. They want to revive this back to its original power. That's always been the plan, right? And true believers, we're going to suffer because of this. But we cannot back down. We got to what? Endure until the end, brothers and sisters, right? Endure until the end. Let us continue. We're going to Revelations, the 17th chapter now. Revelations, the 17th chapter. Hold on once again. Oh, excuse me, brothers and sisters. Hold on one moment. I forgot to bring some tissue down here with me. It's okay. So, Revelations, the 17th chapter. Revelations, the 17th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Revelations 17, and we're going to start at verse 1. Revelation 17 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." We're still dealing with the 4th beast, brothers and sisters, but this is more specifically talking about the Catholic Church, right? Verse 2, "With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication," right? The doctrine. Have been made drunk off the doctrine of her fornication, right? So they around here wobbling and getting all loosed and ready to do all type of sin because they want to fornicate with the wine of the fornication of this whore, right? So the doctrine from the Catholic Church, they want to be lost in the delusion of the doctrine of the Catholic Church, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon the scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemies, having 7 heads and 10 horns," right? So this, remember, you got in Daniel will be talking about something that will occur, brothers and sisters, but Revelations will continue on what Daniel was talking about, right? So even though we got these 10 horns, right, you still got the 10 toes, or the 10 nations that rule the EEU, which this last horn will come from, brothers and sisters, right? He will be ruling the EEU, which is the resurrected Holy Roman Empire, right? So that is what we're dealing with now, right? They are going to be the 10 that rule. Once again, the EU has more than 10 nations, but the ones that will rule the EU, those are the ones that comprise the 10 toes in the 10 horns as well, right? So let's read verse 4. "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colored, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication." Now, I always tell people this, is that my mother grew up as a Catholic. My father was a Baptist, right? But I drunk out of that doggone cup of fornication. I know what they talking about on a personal level. If you ever been to a Catholic church and you took part of communion and all that, you know what this is talking about as well, brothers and sisters. That's that golden cup from that great whore, right? Let us continue. "And upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth," right? We're dealing with that church again, right? Let us continue. "And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, that which hath the 7 heads and the 10 horns. That's talking about now. Once again, this 4th beast has the power. In this time, this 4th beast has the power of all the beasts before it, brothers and sisters. Right? Verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend into the bottomless pit and go into the perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Right? So this beast was at its strongest in Iron Age point, brothers and sisters. Right? And is not. So right now, it doesn't have that power that it has. But then it says, and yet is. It will have that power in the future. That same beast. So it did have the power. It doesn't have it yet, but it'll have it in the future. That's what it means when it says that it was and is not and yet is. It had the power. It doesn't have it now, but it will have it in the future, right? Let us continue. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So we already know that this woman that is being discussed is the Catholic Church and Vatican City, which the city it sits on, where it is, sits on 7 mountains or 7 hills. Right? So Vatican City sits on 7 hills, brothers and sisters, right? That is what we're dealing with. This Roman beast, this 4th beast, Roman beast, the great whore being the Catholic Church. Then you got that it said it was decked with purple and scarlet, right? All you got to do is look at the cardinals and the popes, the cardinals, the Jesuits. They all wear purple and scarlet, brothers and sisters, right? You can just look this up on the internet. It's not hard to find. It ain't like you got to do deep research to find the purple and scarlet, the woman in purple and scarlet. You don't have to go deep with that, right? Let us continue. Verse 10, and there was 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue in a short space. So he said that there were 7 kings. This is 7 kings after the Germanic tribes get plucked up by its roof, right? So those 7 kings, and it says 5 of them have fallen. Those 5, let's rewind. Justinian, Charlemagne the Great, Otto the Great, Charles V, Napoleon Bonaparte. Those were those 5, brothers and sisters, right? And then it said 1 is. This is Mussolini. Right? And then it says that the other is not yet come. That is because we are waiting for the 10th horn, brothers and sisters. Right? The 7 kings, these 7 kings they are talking about are part of the 10 horns, brothers and sisters. The first 7 horns after the Germanic tribes have failed, right? Let us skip down to verse 14. So what is this all about, brothers and sisters? Right? What is this thing all about? Why are they trying to revive the Holy Roman Empire to what it once was? Right? Let us continue. Verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of hosts and the King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Didn't it say the stone was going to come and destroy the image, brothers and sisters? Right? So they're making war. These 7 heads and 10 horns are making war with the Lamb. You see how that goes? That's why whatever is a part of their doctrine, you stay away from it. Especially if it's idolatrous practices. That's what you really stay away from. Whatever else, that's your business. But you better stay away from them idolatrous practices. I know that, right? So, let's skip down to verse 16. Verse 16 reads, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So the 10 horns are inevitably going to go against this woman, Right? The 10 horns gonna go against the women. We talking about those 10 kings that rule the EEU. Eventually, they're gonna go against this woman and burn her down with fire, brothers and sisters, right? Let's skip down to verse 18. Verse 18. Verse 18 reads, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth." And we know this to be Vatican City, brothers and sisters, right? So that woman was Vatican City, which the Catholic Church and the people of the Catholic Church that run the Catholic Church reside in. That is their independent state, as we saw in the history, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Now let's go to Revelations 18. Revelations 18. Revelations 18, and we're going to start at verse 1. Revelations, the 18th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Revelations 18 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and in the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every clean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through her abundance and her delicacies." And you can see the Catholic Church, brothers and sisters, they fulfill this prophecy, right? They are the ones with all these unclean spirits out here, brothers and sisters, because they have merged all the paganism and the idolatrous practices and merged them into one religion, which is Christianity right now, which you call Catholicism. And Catholicism means universalism, brothers and sisters. So we got to understand this is a universal doctrine. That's why they can go and make treaties with everybody. That's why they can sign treaties and make alliances, leagues with everybody, because they are a universal religion. That's why they put together all the pagan practices, because they are a universal religion. It's a mixture of different religions in one, brothers and sisters, right? It is a polluted version of Christianity. The devil was a genius with that. He tricked people by using the name of Jesus to get everybody to follow him. Right? And if you ain't reading this book and you ain't getting down and studying, you're going to get tricked like everybody else, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 4. "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers in her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Right? Now, what's crazy, let's talk about plagues, right? When I was looking up in the beginning, when I was really looking up this, like the coronavirus and the places that was attacking, brothers and sisters, and I'm not, this is not an attack to the people that got sick in those places. I'm not even getting into that. But y'all got to recognize that most of these European nations that had the most as far as results of positive results of coronavirus, they were a part of the Catholic Church, brothers and sisters, or anything. Even if you were Protestant, brothers and sisters, that is a form of the Catholic Church. Hell, Islam is a form of the Catholic Church. A lot of people don't realize that, right? So we got to realize what we are dealing with, brothers and sisters. All these religions, especially these New Age religions, they stem from this great whore. They stem from this great whore. And the Lord is telling all the people that are still involved with that stuff to come out of her. Come out of that great whore, that Jezebel spirit, right? And we ain't talking about sex. We talking about false doctrine. That Jezebel spirit, a false prophetess or false prophet. Get away from them, right? Get in this book, study, and get away from these false prophets, brothers and sisters. Like, seriously, right? Let us continue. Now we are going to the last place, right? Because we just showed you the timeline of when these things are coming, right? So we already showed that the 10th horn has not come yet, right? So we still got to wait for these prophecies to come to pass, brothers and sisters, right? Which we already showed all the prophecies that did come to pass. So you're going to have these people that say, well, why ain't Jesus came back yet? All this stuff that's going on in the world and things of that nature. Why hasn't he come back yet? Right? So these people don't believe that Jesus is really the Messiah that's going to come back to save us from the condition we are in, right? Spiritual and physical, right? So let's go to the last place. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 1. Right? So this for all them why Jesus ain't came back, people. We're going to see why. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. Now remember, we getting into, because black folks are really the ones that say this. Well, why Jesus ain't come and saved us out of our condition, right? Now, of course, we have our OT only brothers, and we have brothers that don't subscribe to this being Christ in the Old Testament. And that's okay. Y'all will be dealt with later, right? But for right now, what we're showing is that people that say this, we're even showing that in the Torah, brothers and sisters, that the God of Israel, who we believe is Jesus, that the God of Israel will not come back until all of these things come to pass. The God of this Bible, he is not going to come save the black people that are spread all across the world in the diaspora. He's not going to save them until these things come to pass, right? So first he says the blessings and the curses have to come to pass, right? And then he said that you're going to call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. So we have to wake up to who we are and then be able to call them to mind so that we can figure out what to do to get out of this condition, right? Let us continue. It says, verse 2, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul. So even if you're an OT only, or you're a believer from Genesis to Revelations, we all have to come back to the Torah to get ourselves out of this position. So regardless of where your belief is at, if you're a Hebrew Israelite or claiming to be a Hebrew Israelite, you have to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, or the law of Moses, which they like to call it, and you have to keep these laws until the end. And when enough of us are keeping this, then he will come back, brothers and sisters. But the blessings and the curses have to occur. These prophecies that we showed, and as far as Daniel is concerned, all 10 of these horns have to come before Christ come. Then we have to see the man of perdition come upon the scene and completely exalt himself as God, brothers and sisters, right? So we already see that with the Pope, who calls himself the Holy Father. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's going to get worse than that. But just think about that. He's already called himself the Holy Father, right? Let us continue. So, if you return to the Lord and keep his commandments with all your heart and with all your soul that they commanded that day, right? Or he commanded that day, rather, right? Verse 3, then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God have scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will... Excuse me about that. Somebody called. verse 6, I'm going to read verse 6 again. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart. I'm sorry, I'm at verse 5. I'm getting ahead of myself. Verse 5, and the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul and that thou mayest live. Right? So we got to come back to this with all our heart and with all our soul. And enough people out here ain't following this, brothers and sisters. Right? For the Lord to come back and regather his people and bring them back to their homeland. It isn't enough of us, brothers and sisters. So we got to understand it isn't enough of us yet. We haven't gotten through all these prophecies yet. Right? So you got to understand, brothers and sisters, where we're at in prophecy. We showed you all the dates of when these things have occurred, right? So you need to get in line and get back to these laws, statutes, commandments. As you can see, Most High God says he called or declared the end from the beginning. And who can declare this? Right? Even if you want to say, like, look, the last day, even if you want to say 400 AD, the 10 horns are still after that. So who can declare this but the Most High God of Israel, brothers and sisters, right? He is the God of all gods. He is the King of all kings. He is the Lord of all lords. And if you can't call the end from the beginning, what kind of God are you? I'm not finna listen to you, right? This is why I'm listening to this guy, because he's calling the end from the beginning in such great detail, brothers and sisters, such great detail. And if you study and you look at this stuff is super natural, even for us to be talking about, hey, this is going to happen in the future. Like, we can actually say that, brothers and sisters. That is scary. We can actually tell a person, hey, these worldly global events are going to happen in the future, and they going to happen. That's how you know we're dealing with the God of all gods, the only true and living God, brothers and sisters, right? So I hope y'all were edified today. This lesson right here, this was one of the most powerful lessons, because this breakdown really shows how in-depth, like, man, really how in-depth the God of Israel is when it comes to what is going on this earth, brothers and sisters, right? Right? And as long as we see that he's calling the end from the beginning, we should obey his voice and give him his, give it the credit that he deserves, and that is the king over the earth, brothers and sisters. So I thank you for your time. As always, we tune in on Mondays. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, depending on the time frame or what's going on in everybody's individual life, it's usually at 6. We put it up to 6, but it may go past that point. It may be on a different day. You see what I'm saying? But regardless, y'all gonna get a Walls of Jericho lesson that week. Right? Unless it's absolutely an emergency going on. But regardless, y'all gonna get a Walls of Jericho lesson that week. So I want to give all honor and praise to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Holy One of Israel, who is Jesus. I am Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Shazak ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho, Biblical Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood Media. And once again, we thank you for your time, and shalom.